Hey, Falcons and NFL fans. Welcome to another episode of NFL's Jocks and Pigskins. I'm Dave Holcomb with Tom Pollen, Chris Smitherman producing behind the scenes. Sorry we're starting a little bit late today, but we've got a great show talking NFL schedule release, a lot to get to. It's really kind of the last big off-season event, Tom. I know we'll have mini camp and OTAs and then training camp a little bit later in the summer, but I mean, this schedule release has gotten huge the last few years, and I think fans really love it. And we're going to talk all about the Falcons' schedule, breaking it down, the top games that they'll have this season. You okay, Tom?
Oh, I see what's happening. Okay. I was getting some feedback. I had to figure out where it was.
Just talking about schedule release that we're going to talk about today. All of the Falcons' top games and the top matchups you're looking forward to in the 2024 season outside of the Falcons. And then if there's time, I think we have a Justin Fields story that we'd like to get to a little bit later on in the show.
Yeah, a little bit. It's a little strange that what came out from Tyler Dunn of Go Long, and it was an interesting piece of work. By a very, very well-respected reporter. So we'll see what we get. But great, it's an interesting schedule. Everybody got screwed, of course. if you ask every team's fans, everybody got screwed. The schedule is just terrible. But we got some fun games coming up. Got a few revenge games coming up. The Falcons schedule looks very interesting. Sets up very nicely after the first 3 weeks, I think. So we'll see what we get into.
Yeah, today's show brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the app. When you do, use our promo code ASU. That's a 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. So some free money for you. Great way to support the show, the channel. And even though it's not football season, there's plenty on the app that you can place an entry on using your free money that you get after you sign up and use our promo code. So,
you got NBA, you got NHL, Major League Baseball is just cranking along. Pittsburgh's got this rookie pitcher that's just a wonder boy, and so you got a lot of great.
Well, I don't think Chicago was calling him the wonder boy until he pitched pretty well against them yesterday afternoon.
Well, yeah, they got to him his first start, but man, I don't
think he left with two guys on base. If the Pirates had anybody in their bullpen that could actually pitch, he really would only have given up one run in that game. But
it doesn't matter.
But he did.
I still held the pitcher.
He pitched a lot better yesterday, for sure. I mean, didn't give up a hit. And I don't want to go down a rabbit hole of, should they have taken him out? Should they not have taken him out when he had a no-hitter in the sixth inning? God. Actually, didn't faze me at all. I guess that's how much baseball has changed, that I would have been surprised if they left him in as opposed to.
And that's unfortunate.
I
miss those days when you could watch a pitcher, a no-hitter, a perfect game going, and see if the pitcher can actually make it. See if he can get through all 9 innings. And I think you miss a little bit that way, but you're right. It's the way the game is going.
I understand it. Yeah, it makes sense that they do, especially a guy that's in his second MLB start. But it really just proves, again, my theory I've had for a long time: all pitchers are babies. So.
Well, it comes back to our discussion about pitchers not actually being taught how to pitch when they're in the minor leagues. And that's eventually that's kind of what it comes down to, is they're not taught how to pitch, not taught how to go 9 innings. And baseball seems to be happy with that. So I'm glad I grew up in an era when I could watch some of the greatest pitchers of all time do their thing on the mound. and face each other and see some of the greatest pitching battles. I grew up watching Fergie Jenkins, Bob Gibson, Juan Marichal, Phil Necro. Just, some of the greatest pitchers you're ever going to want to see. And guys who took it as an affront, who were insulted if the manager came out to try and pull them.
Yeah.
Probably would have knocked the manager down if the manager tried to pull them.
Right.
So,
yeah. Yeah. They took ownership of the game. They wanted to finish it. And that's just not the mentality they have anymore.
No. So just unfortunate, but yeah.
Looking at the Falcons' schedule, they're going to have some, I don't know if I would say they're Bob Gibson-like matchups or Bob Gibson-like opponents, but some tough opponents at the beginning of the season. And then you mentioned how it gets much easier as the season goes. If you believe in strength of schedule as a good metric to how difficult your schedule actually is going to be, which I think strength of schedule based on last year's opponent's win percentage can be very misleading.
Oh, yeah.
But if you want to look at that, the Falcons have the easiest schedule in the NFL, tied
They do.
for their opponents for this upcoming season. Combined have they had a 453 win percentage last year, which is the same opponent last year win percentage that the Saints will face.
Yes.
And those are the two lowest teams in terms of strength of schedule. And they kick off the season home against the Steelers, on the road against the Eagles, then home against the Kansas City Chiefs, a couple primetime matchups. The Eagles will be a Monday night game, Sunday night game for the Chiefs. Then they play the Saints, who, easier opponent beginning of the season, but obviously a rivalry game, not particularly easy. And then you have the division champion coming to Atlanta in week 5. So that's a tough first 5 weeks.
Yes, it is.
But after that, the only team that they play again that was a playoff team other than they're playing Tampa Bay again is Dallas. The rest of the schedule are a bunch of teams that didn't make the postseason, at least last year.
Yeah, I don't put much weight into strength of schedule. Teams change so drastically from year to year. You're going to be seeing a lot of teams are going to drop off.
Yeah.
That were strong last year. You're going to see some teams that through the draft and through free agency, especially since the free agent era, are going to put up a much stronger performance and are going to be a lot more challenging. So, but other teams looking at the Falcons, you're hoping that's what they see too. A team that's going to be more challenging and tougher to face and tougher to beat. So, it comes down both ways, but no, the teams change too much from year to year.
Well, the other thing too that I would put a whole big pause on the celebrating having the easiest schedule if I'm a Falcons fan is you had an easy schedule last year and it made no difference.
Right. You had the easiest schedule in the NFL. You still finished 7-10.
Right. And it wasn't because teams got better. Carolina got worse.
Yes.
And you lost to them on the road in a really important game. Tennessee got worse. That was actually a game that you thought might be a little bit difficult. Then you get to the game in the middle of the season, and it should have been a win, was a loss. Minnesota, you didn't have to face Kirk Cousins.
Nope.
That was a loss. The Cardinals arguably got worse, still a loss. And Washington was the other game I wanted to mention. Washington was not a good team, and they lost to Washington at home. So I would not – I think it's good that you have an easy schedule in a way because, it gives you an opportunity to, really compete for a playoff spot and have a good season. But you don't want to get too overboard with or overreact to the fact that, we can walk our way to a division title. Well, no, the Saints pretty much have the same easy schedule. Carolina doesn't have a very hard schedule either, if you think they're going to be significantly better. but you have to get better yourselves, no matter
Yes.
who you're playing, before you really are worried about, strength of schedule.
Oh, exactly. As I say, other teams are going to be looking at you on this schedule, looking at the Falcons and saying, okay, there's a win. But
Possibly,
the Falcons have changed quite a bit. So it runs both ways. Yeah, you can't take anybody for granted in the NFL. And it's something you think people would learn, but it seems to be the same lesson people have to learn from year to year, that nothing stays the same in this league, and you've really got to change with the times and keep up with it and be prepared to go into every game.
Are you surprised they scheduled the Arthur Smith revenge game for week 1?
Yeah, I am. I thought they would.
I just didn't think this was like that big of a deal, I guess. I don't know. Like, I know he coached there but he only coached there for 3 years. Wasn't a huge name. It wasn't an ugly divorce any more worse or better than a typical firing. So, and it's not like he's the head coach either of the
Right.
Steelers, or he's bringing in
He's
his
the
new
offensive
team.
coordinator.
He's offensive coordinator. So I thought there were better matchups. Being a Steeler fan, I thought there were better matchups the Steelers could have had week 1, and quite frankly, probably the Falcons too. I mean, I'm surprised they didn't consider the Kirk Cousins, Vikings revenge thing, which is much later in the season. That's week 14 at Minnesota. Do you have the schedule in front of you? Do you know who Minnesota plays in week 1?
Damn. No, I don't have that in front of me. Give me a second. I can get it, I think, if my computer is going to work.
I'm not. I think Atlanta Pittsburgh will be an intriguing matchup. Not, it's not a Sunday night, Monday night type of matchup, and it's not in prime time. I think it's appropriately put at 1:00. Maybe one of the more interesting 1:00 games of the opening season.
Right.
Both teams have new quarterbacks. I mean, new head coach for the Falcons, new offense for the Steelers. So a lot of newness there. Both teams are hoping to have much better 2024 seasons. So, and they're out of conference matchup, always kind of intriguing. So in a way, it is a good week 1 matchup, but I kind of thought Wilson versus his old team, the Broncos, and we're getting that in week 2. I thought that would have been a better week 1 for the Steelers.
Yeah, a little surprised at that. But, the NFL lives on storylines, and apparently felt like this was a storyline they wanted to get into in week 1. The Vikings are playing the Giants in New York at week 1. So no special opponent for them as far as their week 1 challenge.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the NFL scheduled it for a reason the way they did, but I kind of felt like Broncos, Steelers, and then Falcons, Vikings week 1 matchups would have been a bigger bang to begin the season.
Yeah, well.
But I think the Steelers Falcons is going to be an intriguing matchup. Gary asks, what kind of reception do you think Smith is going to get in the season opener? He predicts a lot of boos. I don't know. Like, he's the offensive coordinator again. Is he going to get announced as?
That's the thing. He's not going to get a warm welcome. That's for sure. And I think every time Pittsburgh's offense goes off, comes off the field, or if they fail, or the Falcons defense succeeds, during the game, I think there's going to be plenty of boos directed at Smith and Pittsburgh. But you got to remember too, Pittsburgh fans, there might be a lot of Pittsburgh fans in the stadium that day.
Well,
talking about,
you said it, not me. I don't want to make any Falcons fans upset, but
no,
I will be surprised, yeah, if it's going to be majority Steeler fans. It's going to be 80% Steeler fans.
Unfortunately, and that's one of the things the Falcons still have to get past, is they have got to start filling that stadium with more Falcons fans. They can't keep doing that. They can't keep letting opponents outsell their own stadium.
Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating. It was frustrating covering the team a couple years ago when I went to every single game in the press box. And, it's one thing if the Steelers or, I don't know, 49ers, one of the, dare I say, or Cowboys, one of the like Mount Rushmore teams, if they come in and take over, especially if it's like a holiday weekend or something, the reason, right. Or like, maybe not in September, but if it was like December and a bunch of Steelers, like that last time the Steelers were in Atlanta was December. And it's like, well, they're trying to get out of the cold. There's a reason why they're, flocking south for a weekend. But like non-traditional teams will come into Atlanta that season. I was covering the team, like the Detroit Lions, who were, I know they've taken off as like a very popular team now, but
so bad
2 or 3 years ago when they were really bad, and there were as many Lions fans as Falcons fans the day after Christmas at that matchup. And then I know the Commanders have been historically a good franchise, but not recently, not in the last 25 years. And it's not close enough where I feel like, yeah, I'm expecting a lot of Washington fans at this Falcons game. That's where it's really discouraging to me.
Yes, it is.
That so many fans of non-traditional popular teams, or not one of the teams you think are top 5 or top 10 in fan bases or number of fans, they come in and take over a Falcons game. That's very
discouraging. That's a frustrating thing. So you don't know how this Pittsburgh game is going to go. Yeah, it's going to be filled with a lot of Pittsburgh fans. You're probably not going to hear many boos directed Arthur Smith's way.
I would expect more sarcasm anyway, like kind of what Jason's comment here is. Very funny, sarcastic comment. I think that is more of what I would expect. I'm hoping to go to the game. I'm very much thinking that when there is a dumb play call from Smith, which undoubtedly there will be, will be Falcons fans snickering and laughing. I don't think there's going to be a lot of boos, though, Gary.
Yeah, we'll see. Throwing a screen pass to Najee Harris a yard behind the line of scrimmage, that's going to be a very frustrating thing to watch. It's going to be fun to watch for Atlanta fans on their side of the field.
Right.
Because, the average yard, Bijan Robinson's average reception when he got the ball was 1 yard behind the line of scrimmage. That was for all season. So, did not get the ball downfield at all. And so seeing Najee Harris and, trying to take the ball behind the line of scrimmage and then make something happen against the Falcons, that's the kind of stupid thing I'm looking to see.
It's still an improvement from what the Steelers had last year, which is what's really sad. I say that to my wife as well, who's a Broncos fan, and she's like, why the heck would you ever want Russell Wilson? He's better than what they had at quarterback last year. So
yeah, he is. Sure is. But you wonder how much Russell Wilson has left. I thought he was going to take Denver by storm. I thought he was going to lead them to a playoff spot. Unfortunately, he ran into the first year as a head coach of Nathaniel Hackett, who turned out to be one of the worst head coaches you'd ever want to see. Didn't get much better with Sean Payton, though. So, I don't know what we're going to see with Russell Wilson. I really don't. Is he done? Is he on his way on the downward side of his career, or can he make that, one more comeback team up, with Mike Tomlin and make that last ditch, couple winning seasons and kind of redeem his career a little bit?
I think probably a little bit of both. I don't expect him to be the Seattle Seahawks Russell Wilson. That's for sure. But I think we kind of discredit the season he had last year. He had 24 touchdowns and only 8 interceptions. He had one really bad game in prime time against the Chiefs. And I think people kind of remember that game and think that's how he played the whole season. And he played a lot better last year than he did with Nathaniel Hackett. I don't know if he'll repeat that with inferior offensive minds in Pittsburgh as opposed to Sean Payton, but I also don't know how much Sean Payton really helped him. It was very obvious at the end of last season that Sean Payton didn't want him to be there. So, I mean, was that feeling there the entire season? And how did that impact? How did that relationship impact Wilson's play? Hopefully he has much better relationship. Hopefully for him and for the Steelers, he has much better relationships with the offensive coaches and Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh.
Right. Yeah. It became obvious that, there was a schism between him and the coaches, and it just wasn't going to work out. Fortunately, they were able to redo the contract a bit and get him out of town. I think Russell Wilson wanted out of town too. Russell Wilson would have did anything it took to get out of town and get away from Sean Payton and the rest of it, and get into a situation where he can redeem his career a little bit.
And I think he hopes that that's the situation he's in. Gary makes a good point. Offensive line with the Steelers, much bigger, younger, hoping to run a lot. And I think that's why they hired Arthur Smith. They're hoping, get rid of the tight end stuff, the screens and all that. I mean, if you want to put tight ends on the field to block, I guess that's okay. But, I think the Steelers are going to do a lot of running this year.
All right, but that's not Smith's offense. Smith's offense is using the tight ends.
Yeah, but think back to Tennessee. He ran a ton with Derrick Henry.
Yeah, but he also had Michael Pruitt and the name just escaped me. Who was Michael Pruitt and
Jonnu Smith?
Jonnu Smith. God, I couldn't remember his name to save my life. He had Jonnu Smith, Michael Pruitt doing a lot of work in the Titans offense in Tennessee. He likes to use the tight end, unless that tight end is Kyle Pitts for some reason.
Right. Yeah. Well, I don't think that's. I mean, I got mixed feelings about Arthur Smith's offense. Obviously, it got stale in Atlanta. I don't think having tight ends on the field is a bad thing, though. It's where you do a tight end pass to another tight end is where it's redundant and ridiculous. I hope we don't see that, and he's learned his lesson. Put the tight ends on the field and block for Harris and Warren. Got no problem with that.
I'm all for that.
Yeah.
I'm all for that. But don't use the tight ends like he used the tight ends here in Atlanta. That was ridiculous. And as I said, the wrong tight end you're using as your main pass catcher in Jonnu Smith. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Well, I have no problem if Pat Freiermuth is a much bigger part of the Steelers' offense next year. He wasn't enough of a part of the offense last year.
Yeah, but that's different. Freiermuth can catch the ball. Freiermuth can do
so
something
it's not.
with the ball.
So I guess what you're arguing is, I don't know, he should involve the tight ends in Pittsburgh. He doesn't have the same tight ends.
All right, but he overused the tight ends. And as I say, he overused the wrong tight end.
Okay.
In Atlanta. He likes to base his offense off the tight end. which is fine, and I'm not arguing that.
Well, he probably, I guess,
situations, but don't make Jonnu Smith your main tight end just because he was your guy in Tennessee.
Well, he doesn't have any of those in Pittsburgh, so
thankfully,
yeah, that's not going to happen. I'm telling you.
We'll see how that goes. Yeah.
There will be another Falcon other than
Yeah.
Arthur Smith making his return to Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Cordell Patterson, and Todd thinks he's going to have a big game in week 1. Very well could. We'll see how these new kickoff return rules work out. Still have I'm looking forward to seeing that this summer. Definitely in preseason. Normally we don't really care about tuning into the preseason. Like, that is a reason to tune in for sure. See how special teams works out and how your team is coaching that situation early on in the rule change. But I want to return to our Russell Wilson thing because Todd brought up a interesting, not question, but point. They went all in on the two big quarterback free agents this offseason were Kirk Cousins and Russell Wilson. We're going to see them week 1, barring some injury to either of them or some weird decision coming from either franchise to start Justin Fields or Michael Penix Jr. But Todd brings up an interesting point. Why not go after Russell Wilson, pay him a lot less, and have a lot less committed to Russell Wilson than you have committed to Kirk Cousins if you were so in on drafting Michael Penix?
The only thing I can say is I don't think the Falcons I don't think Raheem Morris and his coaching staff had any faith in Russell Wilson coming in here and running Zach Robinson's offense. They felt better about Kirk Cousins coming here and being able to win with Kirk Cousins. That's the only thing I could think of. If they were sold on Michael Penix the entire time and didn't make that decision maybe until they went up there, sent the entire coaching staff up to Washington to see him. When did they make the decision on Michael Penix too?
Right. We don't know.
You have to make that. You have to think about that. So, yeah, I know $100 million, but again, the Falcons are looking to win. They have set up their free agent signings and their acquisitions to win over the next 2 seasons. And if they didn't think Russell Wilson was going to be able to do for them what they wanted to get them at the top of the division and lead them into the playoffs, then the money is moot. It's, you spend 1.5 on Russell Wilson, I understand, but what kind of quarterback are you getting? Apparently the Falcons didn't think they were getting the guy. And that's what it comes down to. Are we getting the guy who's going to win? And then if you get the guy you think is going to win, then when did they make the Michael Penix decision? Was that before they signed Kirk Cousins? Was that when Russell Wilson was available? We don't know. And that might be they hadn't made up their mind on Penix yet at that point and wanted the best quarterback available who had done the most recently. Wilson had a couple of down years as far as, struggling and being the quarterback in Denver. Kirk Cousins, again, was on his way to leading the Vikings to another playoff appearance when he went down. And I think the Falcons were looking at Cousins as the guy they needed to put their team in the playoffs.
I agree. I don't think you can really argue that, to be honest, that yes, Wilson's a much more valuable addition because of the money, but Cousins is the superior quarterback at this point. Maybe we will have a debate at the end of the season. If Wilson comes back, right, perhaps. But right now, I absolutely would rather have Kirk Cousins.
Oh, yeah, I'm willing to have that debate.
Putting money out of the equation, who do you want starting for your team in week 1? It's Kirk Cousins, not Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
So think of it that way, I would say, Todd.
So that's just the way it goes. But yeah, the kickoff rule is going to be big, and that's one of the reasons why I was surprised the Falcons cut ties with Cordero Patterson early. Because you knew they were going to make a move on the kickoff rules. And this is one of the big advantages. I know that's why they took Ray McLeod in free agency, is to replace Cordero and give them a return man, a dangerous return man. So, but yeah, Cordero's going to be tough to stop. He's one of the best. Not much you could say.
Well, looking back at the schedule, Tom, a couple other things I wanted to get to. 4 primetime games this year. We talked last year about how there were no primetime games. It was the first year that the NFL had the rule where you didn't have to have every team in primetime. I think it's getting awfully hard not to have every team in primetime when you have all these primetime games. You got Wednesday games, Friday games, just a lot of games that are in front of a national audience.
You have the NFL is trying to satisfy all their broadcast partners. And can't even call it networks anymore. It's broadcast partners. Because you have so many.
I don't want to be a stickler. I don't even know if broadcast is the right term. Is the stream a broadcast?
Yeah, because you still got announcers.
But it's not over the air though. It's in the stream.
I know.
I'm just being a stickler. I don't know. We don't have a name for it yet. The stream.
No, they don't. But you have all these media outlets yelling at the NFL, take our money. And the NFL's doing their best to try and split these games among them all. And look at Netflix. Netflix has got 2 Christmas games.
Yeah. I think that's nuts. That Netflix is now involved in NFL. But yeah, that can be a separate conversation we can have in a minute about all these streams and networks and broadcasts, whatever you want to call them, that have NFL games now. But I think all Falcons fans wanted to see a little bit more love for the team in prime time on whatever outlet you have to find them on, whether it's Netflix, Amazon, Peacock, NBC, whatever. They wanted them to have some kind of game in front of a national audience, and they're going to have it. They got that 4 times this year, 3 times in the first 5 weeks. So
that's going to be the rough. That's the rough part of the season for the Falcons. Is you're playing off your regular schedule 3 times in the first 5 weeks. And as I've always said, football players are creatures of habit. And you throw them off their schedule. I know it's the same for both teams, but it's rough to face. But yeah, I was a little surprised that they got a little surprised that Minnesota was not one of the primetime games. Philadelphia, that's going to be a battle. That's going to be tough. Kansas City, you got the world champs are coming to Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and yeah, you're going to see a lot of red, but not Falcons red again. But so you got to face the defending champs. You got to face an NFC, one of the top teams in the NFC. You got to face your big division rival on a Thursday night, which is going to be interesting to see. So, yeah, the NFL has really drawn the Falcons in on their primetime scheduling. So there was some love shown to the Falcons wanting to get them on national broadcast this year.
Maybe that Vikings-Falcons matchup later on in the season will be flexed into a more appealing time window than 1 o'clock if both teams are doing well at that point. I would think that
Week 14, December 8th, that could be a target for a flex. Yeah. That's possible.
And that they are now flexing Monday night games, right? Is that after Thanksgiving? That rule is.
I think so. Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, they have the opportunity to be flexed into Sunday or Monday.
And I'm saying to the NFL right now, all your preaching about player safety and about watching out for the player, that's all bull.
Of
Bull
course.
crap.
I mean, we kind of
you are doing nothing, doing no favors for the players with the schedule this year. One thing I looked up and I caught up. The NFL has not scheduled 3 games in 10 days for any team over the last 5 years. 9 teams are going to be playing 3 games in 10 days this season.
Wait, repeat the beginning again. No,
okay, for the last 5 years, no team has been scheduled for 3 games in 10 days.
Right.
This year, 9 teams are scheduled for 3 games in 10 days.
Yeah.
Because they are trying to satisfy.
Because they're playing on Wednesdays and Fridays. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's just, after not scheduling 4 games in 17 days for any team the last 2 years, the NFL has scheduled 7 teams to play 4 games in 17 days this year. So, it's getting ridiculous, and you got to wonder when it's going to start breaking down. When do the players start breaking down because of this? And has it already started?
I mean, I think it has. I mean, how many backup quarterbacks were playing at the end of last year?
Oh, yeah, tons.
A lot. Yeah, I don't really. I agree with you that I don't think they care at all about player safety or the players' well-being, I guess. I guess the only thing I would push back on is regularly they play 3 games in 11 days, right?
Yeah,
that's
could be, yeah.
Pretty common. So is there a really big difference between 3 games in 10 days versus 3 games in 11? Maybe there is. I don't know. I don't think any of us can really answer that question. I think it would take some very deep research and science to really be able to say.
But it's just strange that so many teams are in that situation this year, and the NFL hasn't put them through that situation previous years.
Yeah. Well,
it's all to make Amazon, Netflix, Peacock. Who else is there out there? Nickelodeon. All to make everybody happy. Nickelodeon gets to pour their green goo all over the field. So,
I think I already said this last week, but no, there shouldn't be games on Christmas. I'm sorry, there just shouldn't be. You could give Netflix something else. Why not have? I know this isn't maybe this isn't much better, but why not have 2 games on Christmas Eve instead of Christmas Day? That would be a Tuesday, and have you could have done a doubleheader on Christmas Eve, have those, and then they actually would have extra rest because that's the same week as Sunday. It'd be like Monday. Right. Instead of playing Sunday, you're playing Monday. Well, instead of playing Sunday, you're playing Tuesday. And I know Tuesday to Sunday would be a very short week, but you don't have them play Sunday. You have those teams play Monday. Right. And Monday is December 30th. Not really a holiday, but there's people not working. There's enough of a audience there that I think you could do a doubleheader again on December 30th on a Monday night. I think that would have been better for players' health. I think it would have been better for the fans.
Yeah.
I don't think fans, at least me, I would much rather watch games on Christmas Eve than Christmas Day.
But so do I. I understand that when a Christmas Day falls on a Sunday, you're going to get
you're going to get some games, but now we're going out of our way.
Right, you're going out of their way to do
games on Christmas. That just doesn't make sense to me. I'm very curious to see how it goes on a non-traditional network as well to see how many people tune in. It's probably going to be a lot, but it's interesting.
Yeah.
And those games aren't in prime time either. It's 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock.
Yes. So,
which I read that Netflix wanted them in the afternoon because Netflix is worldwide.
Well, and that leads into their primetime schedule.
Yeah, so people in Europe on Christmas can watch the NFL at night.
Right.
If the games were at night in the United States, then they would lose the European audience. That is also pretty wild, if you ask me. That there's enough of an audience for the NFL in Europe that Netflix influenced the start times of those games to be in the afternoon.
The NFL thinks there is. Because I'm sure I can tell you the NFL, if that's what Netflix negotiated, if that was one of the things they wanted, I'm sure the NFL readily agreed to it just for that reason.
Yeah,
be able to get,
that's what I read, that Netflix said those are the times the game should be played.
Yeah. And obviously the NFL agrees because I know the NFL loves that those European games. They want to generate that interest in Europe and they're going after it. So this is another way of doing it. Yeah, you're taking two teams extremely out of their habits as far as game prep. Putting players on the field probably when they have no business being on the field. They're still recuperating from a previous game. And I'm hoping, I haven't looked closely at it yet, if these teams are playing from Sunday going to Wednesday or if they're,
they're playing Saturday.
They're playing Saturday going to Wednesday. Still,
that was kind of my point about the doubleheader thing, because there's a doubleheader on Saturday, December 21st, I believe is that date. The Steelers are playing the Ravens. The Chiefs are playing the Texans. And then the doubleheader on Christmas involves the same teams. The Steelers play the Chiefs. The Texans play the Ravens.
Yeah.
They could have done the same thing, done Christmas Eve and the 30th instead.
And they should have. But Netflix wouldn't pay, probably, they wouldn't get that money from Netflix to do it.
Really? The Christmas Day is the draw? Not when Christmas Eve wouldn't be a draw too?
I don't know, Dave. I wish I knew.
You're probably right.
You should actually work for NFL broadcasting.
I don't know. I'd probably schedule the games when I want to watch them, which is no one else.
You should work for the schedule maker.
I'll tell you another thing that no one really cares about, and no one really should, to be honest. But I know people will care about it a lot. Christmas week, it's going to be hell setting your fantasy lineup on Wednesday.
Oh yes, it will. And you're right. They're not thinking about it now, but come time, yes,
you're going to have to decide: am I playing, George Pickens against the Chiefs defense? Or am I holding out, hoping that, I don't know, A.J. Brown or Keenan Allen is I'm trying to think of somebody who probably is a little bit better than Pickens, but not like a stud. I don't know, or it could be a stud, or you could have Jamar Chase or Tyreek Hill playing Sunday, but he's banged up. You don't know if he's going to play. He's questionable. You have to make a decision whether he's going to play, or do you want to put George Pickens in? You have to make that decision during Christmas dinner, basically. That's at noon. You're eating your mass on Christmas, or you're hanging out with family, and you're trying to make a lineup decision that you really can't make because
sitting there in church with your phone, trying to figure out,
trying to decide if Tyreek Hill is going to play him for
you.
Yeah.
While the minister's probably trying to say, "I wish I could get off this pedestal and get done with my sermon so I can figure out who I want to."
Right.
But it's amazing what the NFL has created here, and it's not going to get better anytime soon, because very soon the NFL is going to take one of those preseason games and make it a regular season game. It's going to happen.
Yes.
Goodell has already said, basically, it's coming. So I don't know what year, but it is coming. So you are going to have that extra game, and it's going to be more games that they can throw at these different broadcast partners.
I hate having an odd number of games. So to be honest, I would prefer that. I guess it's my ADHD that I don't really have ADHD. I shouldn't make a joke about that, but I don't know. I just hate the odd number. 9 and 8, 13 and 5, 12 and 5. I can't even remember like what's 12-5. Yeah, that adds up to 17. Like I have to stop for a second.
Yeah. It's
not to mention that you have the odd number of home and away games. I know it gets made up the next year, but I would actually probably be in favor of the 18-game schedule at this point, just so we can have symmetry again.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue that. I would like to see it too, and I think it works better. I think fans react to it better. I think a lot of fans have your opinion on it.
16 would be better. That's much better symmetry. There's 32 teams, 16 teams in each conference, 4 in each division, 16 games. The divisions are divided into fourths. Basically, you divide your season into fourths. You can divide evenly in half. 18, not quite the same, but they used to have 14, so 14 didn't really work that way either. So,
yeah, back when I was growing up, back when I was a youngin', we had 14 games, and we were happy with those 14 games. Now, actually, I didn't mind the 16-game schedule when it came out. So, but the problem is,
I can't believe they used to play 6 preseason games. That to me is absolutely wild.
That was hell to try and watch. To try and get through the preseason schedule was hell. And
back then, the players probably played, right? Because that's the way it was.
One of the problems was this was before the free agent era. So a lot of these guys needed that money. And they needed the training camp time to get in football shape.
Yeah.
Because they had to get jobs in the offseason.
Right.
That's the thing. Unless you were a big star, unless you were getting paid big, you needed all that time to get in shape, to get in football shape. Now, when free agency started, you don't have to do that anymore because you are, teams are also taking your health more seriously. Get your tail out of the way. And they are, you got nutritionists, you got trainers, you got guys who are supervising every part of your off-season experience. And as a player, you don't have to work. You can concentrate on being in the best shape you can be in when training camp starts. And when that preseason starts, you're ready to play football, actually. Because you've been through all the off-season programs and your diet, and you're ready to play football. So that's a big difference between what we have now and what we had then. Why 16 games, I think, works so well. But 18, football is hard on the body.
Yeah.
That is tough on the body to play 18 games in the season at full speed.
And then throw in the playoffs. And there's another playoff.
Right.
They haven't really added another playoff round, but only one team gets a bye. So there's an extra team that's playing another game in order to get to the Super Bowl.
Right. It's rough on players. You see it going through the season when you look at injury reports. Guys sat out, did not practice because of rest. They wanted to rest players during the week instead of having them practice because it's a lot of work for these players to make it through 18 games. And the older you get, the tougher it gets.
Yeah.
And that's why I think players on the other side of 30 right now playing in modern NFL probably have it tougher than players who were over 30 playing in, previous incarnations of the NFL when, they weren't putting their body on the line so much every week.
And all the schedule changes that we're talking about. I mean,
yeah,
10 years ago, probably the biggest change, they've added a game, but the biggest change is all these scheduling changes. You're playing Saturday,
right.
playing Friday, play Thursday. I mean, Thursday was not a thing until about 15 years ago.
Right.
Where
Thursday night belonged to college football. And that's the thing. That was part of the unspoken agreement between the NFL and college football, is college football saying, yeah, you can be on our campuses, you can scout our players, but we want our night. We want our night game. And I don't know what happened, why that changed, but the NFL took over Thursday nights. And after the college season, the NFL has always played a couple of Saturday games. So right. Saturday games aren't completely out of the ordinary, because once the college season was over, the NFL would schedule a couple of Saturday games.
But I think there are more Saturday games than there used to be.
Could be. But I think the Thursday night is the biggest change in the NFL schedule that we've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
And we're going through another revolution in the NFL schedule with as many outlets that want to be a part of the NFL season and want to show the NFL that, please take our money. We want to give you our money, please.
Right. Yeah. Well, we're just scratching the surface, really. There's plenty more to talk about, but we're running short on time today. We wanted to get to a little Justin Fields story from this week. Tom, what came out this week Justin Fields?
Apparently, during his rookie season, the Bears had Dalton as one of their quarterbacks, brought in Nick Foles as one of their quarterbacks. I think Foles was there the year before with Trubisky. But figured we have two veterans who've really seen a lot of football, played a lot of football. And, Andy Dalton, I was trying to remember his first name. But
yeah. The Red Rifle.
Yeah, the Red Rifle. But apparently Fields was not taking much instruction. Apparently Foles went to point something out to Fields, like a teaching moment in the quarterback room, and looked at Fields, and Fields wasn't even paying attention. And Foles got mad and said, that's at that point, he said that was it. He was done. He was finished with Justin, and he didn't want any part of it. And so, that's the thing. A few things are coming out saying that, well, Justin Fields wasn't quite as loved as everybody wanted to make him out to be. I don't know. Is it sour grapes? I do agree that confrontation between Foles and Fields probably took place. Tyler Dunn has a lot of solid contacts in the in an NFL room, around the NFL, among coaches and people in the locker room. And apparently this did take place where Foles was trying to teach Fields something, and Fields just wasn't interested. And you could say, could Fields have been a better quarterback earlier if he had been willing to listen to these two veterans that he had, that he could have mined for an awful lot of information about how to read defenses? And because I don't think, to me, Fields never figured out how to read a defense.
So did the story say at all whether this was a one-time instance, or did it kind of try and imply or suggest that this was a regular occurrence and this is one example of something that happened?
Well, apparently after that, it became a regular occurrence that Dalton and Foles did not have anything to do with Fields. They'd be together on the football field, and Fields would be off to the side, 10, 15 yards away, not really interacting with them, not interested in them. So that apparently was kind of the point that's told at least Foles that Fields wasn't willing to sit there and learn. Maybe Fields felt that he had it more figured out than, apparently he did. But,
Maybe,
to me, if you're a rookie quarterback and you got a veteran who's taking the team to the Super Bowl and he's trying to teach you something, you better be paying attention. And it's a big problem. It's a red flag when you find out that Justin Fields, was like this and did something like this, that he was ignoring the veteran quarterbacks in the room when he could have been learning some very important information as far as how to, where to look, where to anticipate. Because Fields never has learned how to anticipate. He doesn't anticipate plays. He doesn't anticipate receivers being open. And that's a very frustrating thing. And and apparently they couldn't stand each other the rest of the season, and Dalton was with Foles, and it kind of left Fields on an island, but, apparently he wasn't worried about that. He wanted to be his quarterback, and it turns out he didn't develop as well as he could have. There was some talk about maybe some problems between him and some of the coaching staff. Now, part of the coaching staff that was identified as an issue second and third seasons, that he was not on the same page as the coaching staff. And that, and he made a comment about the being coached, about how he was being coached after week 3 last year. And now this might just be a case of a coaches trying to get back at Fields for trying to call them out week 3. But you could see there was a huge gap between what the offensive coaches were trying to teach him and what he was doing on the field. It wasn't working. So we'll get a better idea. We're going to get a better idea this year of, maybe where some of the problems lay. Luke Getsy's going to Las Vegas to be the Raiders offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Does Getsy succeed more with the Raiders quarterbacks? Does Fields succeed more in Pittsburgh with Pittsburgh's coaching staff? That's kind of what we're going to see. Where were those problems? Was it just a fact that the Bears maybe didn't support Fields? There's a lot of fans that say the Bears didn't support Fields. Now, he didn't do much to lift the team either.
Right. A lot of what you say kind of mirrors what the Steelers just went through with Kenny Pickett. I mean, not quite as hyped of a prospect. The first quarterback taken in that weak class at 20th overall versus Fields. The Bears traded up for him, and he was regarded as a savior, all that stuff. But, after he got traded, there were rumblings about him being a bad teammate and canceling workouts and didn't want to be supportive of the other quarterbacks. And there is a lot of, why is this coming out now? The team is leaking it now so that their fan base will like the fact that you traded him.
At that point, you don't want those distractions either. So a lot of it stays hidden. A lot of it stays undercover.
Sure. Sure. Yes.
But
I definitely think that was the case with Pickett. You could tell there maybe it was something going on, but there was enough where like they denied it happening, and then there was no more denial of it happening after they traded him. Everything came out.
there are reports saying that Fields was not the teammate, was not the leader of that offense that everybody was kind of promoting him to be. That he really hadn't spent a lot of time connecting with his players on offense and, gelling with them a little bit better. And it's hard to say after the fact,
And a lot of this stuff we can't really know unless we're there, or unless I wouldn't feel comfortable feeling 100% that that's the case unless I talked to somebody who was there or talked to multiple people that were there, and not just quarterbacks that he's competing with, offensive linemen, his receivers, even defensive players, how they react to them. And, unfortunately, as fans or in the outlets that you and I are in, we don't have that access to really 100% know.
Right. Well, and nobody's on the record. Apparently, Foles is on the record, but nobody's on the record as far as anything else that's coming out about Fields. So you don't know if it's teammates that are, maybe he had a few problems and just, are talking behind his back now. Whether you just don't know where, a coach, apparently there was an anonymous coach that said he watched Fields, processing things on offense, saw his eyes going all over the place that he couldn't process. And that was a problem. Well, also it's an anonymous coach, and Fields had called out the coaches, in week 3. So is this coach being petty, or is, you can't tell. This year will be interesting to see how, as they say, how Getsy gets his job done in Oakland and how Fields.
Las Vegas.
Yeah, God. I'm not going to get used. It's going to be like the San Diego Chargers. It's going to take forever to get used to that.
Yeah.
And it's not like the Raiders hadn't moved before.
Right.
They were Los Angeles Raiders for a long time. But
Luke Getsy's watching our show thinking, I'm not living in Oakland. I'm in Las Vegas.
I'm in Las Vegas. Vegas, baby.
Right. Yeah.
But I couldn't live in Vegas. Couldn't happen.
Too hot?
Well, that's part of it. I could never make enough money to live in Vegas. But anyway, I tend to like to gamble occasionally. I don't overdo it.
I see.
I don't overdo it. I they say you only gamble what you can afford to lose. Right now, I don't gamble because I can't afford to lose a dime. But a lot of temptation running around Vegas. So,
and here, because our show brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the app. When you do, use our promo code ASU. That's a 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. So some free money for you. Great way to support us. You could also support our show by subscribing to the channel, Atlanta Sports Unlimited, giving us a like on this episode, and follow us on our other outlets. Facebook, you can give us a like there. Twitter, at TJ Pollen is Tom, at DM Holcomb is me. Great way to see what else we're doing and support us on the show and outside the show.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Atlanta Sports Unlimited is over 3,000 subscribers now. So that's nice to see. The channel keeps growing. And, we gotta keep the talent going, which is one of the issues we have here. Dave being your last show. That's very upsetting because, we've worked together a lot over the last dozen years. And
Yeah, I announced last week that today would be my last show. I don't know if everyone watching now watched last week, but yeah, this is it. This is goodbye. I had such a great time the 3.5 years I was here at Atlanta Sports Unlimited, working with Tom and Chris every single week. I'd never had a producer on a show before. Chris, you did an awesome job every single week helping us out, and I really appreciated having you. Thank you to Terrence Moore, who has never been on our show, but is kind of our leader on our channel, Atlanta Sports Unlimited. Thank you for giving me the opportunity, and thank you to you, Tom. It's been fantastic, and as you said, we did shows together before this.
yeah.
This was our first video show, so this was definitely a great experience. And as far as what I'm doing next, I'm not 100% sure. I'm not going to be on a podcast or a video show anytime soon again, but I am covering the Falcons at SI.com again. You know that scene in The Godfather Part 3 where it's like, just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in. Yep. This is the fourth stint I've had at Falcons SI. So I'm back there writing stuff, trying to write every day. I'm sure definitely will be writing every day come season. So Scott Kennedy's brought me back, and going to be focusing on my writing and spending time with family, not doing this.
Right. Well, and I want to say that I am going to miss working with you. You kept me centered, and helped fill the brain gaps that I occasionally have. And God, it's going to be strange not doing a show with you after all these years. It is going to be wild.
Yeah, it will be.
But I understand
just getting used to.
You have a wonderful family going, and there are. I've always said, as far as parents, cherish every minute you get with them, because I don't have mine anymore. And if you still have your parents, cherish them. And if you're a parent, cherish your family, because, it goes fast. So, very, very going to miss you. This show will be back.
You're taking next week off?
Taking next week off. We don't know what form this show will be taking, but I will be back with you on Saturday at noon Eastern time, 11 Central time. So
June 1st, new beginning.
So we'll see how it goes. I've talked with Chris and with Terrence and see what they want to do, and we will move forward. So, I hope the audience stays with us and we can keep building something here. But it's going to be a different thing.
I know the audience will stay with you, Tom. I know it for a fact. 3,000 subscribers. We got these guys coming every single week. They come for both of us, and they're going to keep coming for you.
And that's the thing. I appreciate everybody who does spend their Saturday with us, and everybody who watches the replay during the week. And I do appreciate all your support. And Dave, I've appreciated all your support over the years. And there's not much more I could say. We will see you June 1st, and we will go from there. It's time to start getting into OTAs and training camp time. Everyone have a great Memorial Day holiday.